Hi, everybody. Today we are going to be talking about Chapter 12, Middle Childhood Cognitive Development. So we always start with fact or fiction. Number one, during middle childhood, cognitive processes become logical and abstract. This is not true. Number two, the basic cognitive processing capacity of school children does not differ greatly from that of preschoolers. This is not true. Number three, many children between ages 7 and 11 excel at switching between formal and informal forms of language. This actually is true. And number four, the best strategy for teaching a school age child whose language is non standard form is to conduct all instruction in standard English. This is not true. Piaget studied transitive inference, which is the ability to figure out the unspoken link between one fact and another. Transitive inference is related to another logical concept that Piaget called seriation, which is the knowledge that things can be arranged in logical series. So this would be a question. Fritz is taller than Daphne. Daphne is taller than Nino. Who is taller, Fritz or Nino? So according to Piaget, how would a 4-year-old answer? A 4-year-old can't think about with the logic yet, so that question would actually stump the 4-year-old, while a 9-year-old, they've reached a concrete operational stage and they will probably answer correctly that Fritz is taller. And that's showing you the example. After the experimenter explained each correct, this is a building on theory. And what is metacognition is how do children use it to solve problems. For example, in an experiment, researchers asked 112 third and fourth grade children to create experiments in which variables were controlled. They used the ramps you see here. Using these same ramps, how would you design a scientific experiment to determine the effect of distance or steepness? So it's showing you the balls and different ramps. After the experimenter explained each correct answer to the third and fourth students in this study, the experimenter also emphasized the importance of testing a single variable at a time. In this experiment, the kids used a golf ball, white, and a rubber ball, red. You can see in each of these animations how switching ramps is an additional variable to consider when thinking about slope, speed, and height. That's a lot to be thinking about. So you can see the different ramps. Vygotsky believed education occurs everywhere, not only in school. He thought that peers and teachers provide the bridge between developmental potential and needed skills and knowledge via guided participation, scaffolding, and the zone of proximal development. So basically the factors that he feels like really builds is be the families, the preschool programs, different learning activities, and basically first grade with a literary emphasis. And guided participation is the process by which people learn from others who guide their experiences and explorations. Scaffolding is a temporary support that's tailored to a learner's needs and abilities, and it's aimed at helping the learner master the next task. And zone of proximal development, in the sociocultural theory, a metaphorical area or zone surrounding a learner that includes all the skills, knowledge, and concepts that the person is close to, but with like kind of that guided participation gets them over to like the next level. Adults are not always aware of how difficult it is for young children or adults who are learning a new language to grasp figures of speech. For instance, we always hear he put his foot in his mouth. Did she really put her foot in her mouth? No, that's just an expression we use. An example of how distinct pragmatics is from vocabulary is kids from high-functioning autism or Asperger's disorder who have vast vocabularies but often don't manage to join a conversation or follow along with the topic or sustain a back-and-forth interaction. In middle childhood, metaphors, jokes, and puns are finally comprehended due to greater cognitive flexibility and social awareness. So during these years, children think jokes like, what is black and white and red all over, or why did the chicken cross the road, plus all kinds of knock-knock jokes, are hilarious, whereas younger children do not comprehend them, and teenagers no longer think they're funny. So the student saying to the professor, hey, what's up? And she probably doesn't mean it. She's like trying to be respectful. The success of any method seems to depend on the literacy of the home environment, the national culture, and the warmth, training, and skill of the teacher. Almost every European and Canadian child speaks 2 languages by age 10. African children who are talented and fortunate enough to graduate from high school often speak 3 languages. So there's different schools of thought in terms of learning strategies. There's immersion, when you are actually immersed in the second language, bilingual schooling, and ESL, which is English as a second language. So in the United States, there are 2 basic approaches for learning reading and math. There's the phonics approach, which is teaching reading by first teaching the sounds of each letter and the various letter combinations. And then there's this whole language approach, teaching reading by encouraging early use of all language skills. Right now, we're back to, my kids are in LA Unified, and they're doing phonics approach. When I was younger, we learned language reading through the whole language approach. So it kind of goes back and forth. The pendulum swings back and forth. With math, there's a greater emphasis on basic math skills. And then there's the encouraging a broader conceptual understanding of subjects in math. And right now, I think that they're emphasizing just basic math skills in our schools. Each state sets its own level of proficiency, which helps states in which the children score low on the NAEP to obtain more federal money for education. That practice may undercut high standards for student learning. That is, states may be shifting their standards to compensate for poor results because of the incentives in the NCLB Act to have students meet state standards. Disagreement about state tests led to the Common Core Standards Initiative developed by the National Governors Association. The Common Core has very specific standards in each subject for each grade. And these definitely have an impact on teaching methods and cognitive development in students. So what are the local standards U.S. sets for children's reading proficiency? So this is showing the percentage in states. And this is the fourth graders' reading proficiency, the gap between NAEP and the states. And you can see there are tremendous gaps. Teaching and learning outcomes. Although the TIMSS is a very useful, different countries' scores are not always comparable because sample selection, test administration, and content validity are hard to keep uniform. The top 12 groups are listed in order, but after that, not all the jurisdictions that took the test are listed. Some nations have improved over the past 15 years, notably Hong Kong and England, and some have declined, Austria and the Netherlands, but most continue about where they've always been. Many nations do not participate in the TIMSS or the PIRLS, a primary test of reading, finding these tests too expensive, discouraging, or too difficult. But the test results focus on nations' efforts on educational achievement, and when school learning advances, the national economy advances as well. This link seems casual, not merely correlational. Probably because better educated adults become more productive workers. So if you look at this, ranking and average scores of math achievement for fourth graders, if you look where the United States is falling, we're falling number 10. In most nations, matters regarding public education are set by a central government, but in the United States, local jurisdictions provide most of the funds and guidelines. What other perspectives do you read and hear about when people are talking about how to best manage U.S. education? We hear about it in the news all the time. So here's one person saying the best approach is charter schools. This one saying the best support is the vouchers, so they can decide where to send their kids to. And then another person saying the best is to not have them drain the public schools by having vouchers and charters. So, culture, gender, and education. What are some gender differences in school performance? We know that in a study of fifth graders with high IQs, when an academic material became confusing, girls were less likely to persevere, but boys enjoyed the challenge. So that's already a gender-specific difference. In middle childhood, girls typically get higher grades than boys do. Then at puberty, girls' achievement dips. And it's interesting to wonder, why do these achievements dip? Like, what is it, that they're not as smart, or other things going on, or that they feel like they'd be more popular by not being as smart? Processing speed develops more slowly in boys, a finding that implies the existence of differences in male and female brains. So right from birth, we know that there's some differences. So we're done with chapter 12 now. I'd like you to go into the form section, and there's a choice of about 4 different questions. Please respond to one of them about middle childhood and cognitive development, and make sure when you're responding to the questions that you're using supporting material from our textbook.